Okay, so I'm gonna record this intro now so that it can be included in all of my future videos. What I say, unless I am reading scripture or directly quoting a prophet, is my opinion and my opinion alone. I might follow the archaeological evidence or the science that exists, but it is mine and it is my opinion. It's not the church's opinion, it's no one else's. It's just mine. So this little clip here will go in front of every other video I make so that people can't say that I'm misrepresenting the church. Hey guys, so this probably isn't going to be too long. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk more about this kind of subject, but or I want to talk more about this specific subject that I'm going to talk about here, but it's not going to be too long right now. I'll probably post again tomorrow after I record. There's been a lot of hubbub on the internet about the first presidency's, how do you say it? Their notice, or the thing they put out, right? That some people read over, some wards read over the pulpit. Anyway, so there's been a lot of hubbub about this, about the first presidency urging people to get the vaccine. And there's been people pushing back saying that they feel like they shouldn't get it. Like, they prayed about it and they asked, and they felt the Lord told them not to get the vaccine. And I've just got a couple of things to say about that. Firstly, I don't care if it's coming from the executive side or from the spiritual side. It's revelation. If it's coming from the first presidency as a notice to the church. It doesn't matter which side it comes from. We have scripture that is from the executive side, that is actual scripture. Like, when King Mosiah and my family's reading about this right now in the Book of Mormon. When King Mosiah issued out a notice to the people that there should be no prejudices between the rich and the poor, between the members of the church and the non-members of the church, that there should be no persecutions, it was illegal. King Mosiah at the time was the prophet. He was the prophet, seer, and revelator. And we know this because he was the one with the Urim and Thummim, not Alma. Alma functioned as the acting president of the Quorum of the 12. But he was not the prophet. Yes, he was a prophet, but he was not the prophet, seer, and revelator at that point in time in the land. That was Mosiah. strictly Mosiah. And he issued out this decree. And yes, he was king too. But that was an executive order given to him by revelation. It was an executive order by him through revelation that they shouldn't have kings. That having a king would lead them to their destruction. And so he instituted judges. Those were executive actions on the executive side of the church. It had nothing to do with the spiritual welfare of their souls. But it actually did. Even if we go to things like the Word of Wisdom. The Word of Wisdom was initially an executive action by Joseph Smith. Why? Because Emma said she was sick and tired of cleaning up freaking tobacco spit from the council. From the council prophets, the elders of the church who met. Emma Smith was sick and tired of cleaning up their crap from their freaking spitting on the floor. So she went to Joseph and said, "Hey, I want to know about this." And as a result, we got an executive action of Joseph saying, "You shouldn't do that." Because God said, "You shouldn't do that. But you should do this." And what happened? Yeah, we read that it wasn't a commandment. Right? But it is still required for our souls to be saved. For us to enter God's temple, we are required to keep the word of wisdom. If we answer no, we aren't keeping the word of wisdom, we're not given temple recommends. It went from being a, hey, suggestion to, fine, you can't keep a suggestion, then it's a commandment. Because members of the church weren't listening to the word of wisdom as a non-commandment. It was an executive issue, a notice saying you're supposed to do this. It doesn't matter whether it's an executive notice from the executive side of the First Presidency acting as executives of the church, right? Or if it comes from them as a commandment for our souls. It doesn't matter. If the First Presidency says we're supposed to do something, we're supposed to do it. That is what it means by following the prophet and doing as we're commanded. There's nothing I hate more than seeing fellow church members fight and argue. Oh, I felt that the Lord told me not to get the vaccine, but now the prophet's saying we should, but I feel like I shouldn't, so I'm not gonna. I feel like I shouldn't have to wear a mask. The prophet said wear a mask. Wear a freaking mask. It's not an option. You can choose not to. And risk your demise. Think of it as a test of faith. If that's how you need to think of it. Do you trust the Lord enough and trust his prophet enough to follow him, even in something stupid like this? Or do you not? Because if you don't, then you need to get your priorities straight. In the end, it's up to you. It really is. But the choice is this: listen to the prophet and follow his counsel, which comes from God. Because it wasn't a, hey, you should do this. It is, you need to do this. That's what they said. You need to get the vaccine. We should and need to be wearing masks where necessary. That being sacrament meeting, friggin' anytime you meet in crowds, or go into public. That's what the prophet's saying. So screw how you feel personally about the vaccine. That's not what's important here. What is important is, do you have enough faith to trust the prophet to know that he is receiving revelation from God daily for the entire church? Or does that not apply to you? Because I know lots of members that feel that way. That feel like, oh, the word of wisdom doesn't apply to me because I'm not weak. The word of wisdom doesn't apply to me because I know what I'm doing. And so they smoke. They drink. They eat tons of red meat, which the word of wisdom explicitly says don't do. This isn't about your personal feelings. This is about, do you trust the prophet? That's all it comes down to. Do you trust him enough to follow him and know that he isn't leading you astray? Do you trust him enough to know that he's receiving revelation for the church daily, constantly, always? Or do you not trust the Lord to give revelation to the prophet and trust in his prophet? Because if you don't trust the prophet, then you can't support him. You can't back him up. You cannot sustain the prophet if you do not trust his ability to receive revelation for the church and issue it out as either executive notices or as revelatory announcements. It doesn't matter how he issues it out. It's revelation. Do you trust him or don't you? That's what this comes down to. Because if you don't trust the prophet, you can't sustain him. And you're in the wrong place. If you feel that you can't trust the prophet, maybe you should look elsewhere for religion. If you know the church is true, and President Nelson is a prophet, you follow him. It doesn't matter what else you feel. My personal feelings about some of the things he said don't matter. Because he said them, and I get confirmation that what he said is true. It didn't matter what my personal feelings were before. If you can't receive personal confirmation that what he's saying is true, then that's not an issue with him. That's an issue with you. That means you need to figure your crap out and get yourself straight. I love all you people out there. I really do. But this has been something that's been bothering me all week. I've heard people tell me, oh, it's a choice. I've heard on YouTube, oh, it's not a commandment. You don't have to do it. I've heard it's like the word of wisdom, or it falls under the same category as the word of wisdom. It's for the weak. I've heard all sorts of things. This isn't about personal feelings. And like I said, I love you brothers and sisters. I love you friends and all those that are watching that aren't members. But this is what it comes down to. Do you trust the prophet? If you don't, fine, go somewhere else. Because you cannot sustain someone you do not trust. If you do, cool. He's not going to lead us astray. Not in things like this. There have been prophets out there that have said some really crazy stuff. Don't get me started on Brigham Young because he was out there on a lot of things. But when it came to true prophetic issuance, Brigham Young was a prophet. And he held the keys to the gospel. And they've been passed down from generation to generation until Russell M. Nelson. It boggles my mind. It really does. It boggles my mind how people can't see an executive notice, something issued out by the first presidency, as revelation. How don't they see it that way? Just because you have personal feelings against the vaccine, or personal feelings against body piercings, or other things, that's not for you to decide. I mean, it is. Do you choose to follow God or not? Do you choose to follow the prophet or not? That's your choice. But in these things, in these kinds of instances, when things matter most, when it deals with your health, when it deals with your livelihood, when it deals with your spirit and your eternal salvation, those four things, the prophet is not going to lead you astray. Ever. Because those four things are vital to your salvation and your returning to God. And so God will not let the prophet lead you astray in those things. So if the prophet issues out a notice, even if he has someone else write it, and says, you need to write this, and they write it and he signs it, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who wrote it down. The prophet issued the order to write it. That's why they signed it. And there was an order sent among all the land. That's from the Book of Mormon. It doesn't matter. Do you think Mosiah wrote every order that went out? Do you think he wrote down the order? No. He said, this is what needs to happen to his scribes and the people that were under him that were all about legality. He probably had a few lawyers working for him, as they did have lawyers. And he said, this is what needs to happen. I need you to tell people to do this, this, and this. You figure out how to say it. And they probably wrote it, and he signed and sealed the proclamation. That's generally what happened with kings. Kings didn't write their own proclamations. Their lawyers did. The lawyers that worked under them did. Like, the same goes for prophets. Yes, Moses wrote the books. We have the canon we have, so that we can turn back and look at the things we need to look at. I said this was going to be a short video, and it's turned into this really long rant. And I didn't want it to be a rant. I really, really like what Troy Abel said. And that was, you need to pray. And don't pray about the jab. Don't go pray about whether or not to get the vaccine. Pray as to whether or not the prophet is the prophet. He said that you need to pray to see if you should follow the advice of the prophet. So that's what he said. And I like that, because that's what you should be doing. Ask, should I be doing this? And if you get a negative answer, like he said, ask, why? Why am I getting a negative answer? What do I need? Is this for health? Is this... He said to really go out there in our prayers. I liked that. I really, really liked that. I really liked what Troy Abel had to say about that. Alright. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy whatever you're doing. If I find more references to talk about this, I'll probably record another video on it. Probably not, because this has ended up being a fairly lengthy video. So, have a wonderful night, guys. Enjoy. And you'll probably see more pictures on my wall the next time I record here in my house. So, have a good night.